The interviews in this video are with candidates currently running in the November 2020 election in Brevard County. I'm Zach Noon. I had the opportunity to speak with local candidates about their knowledge of renewable energy and how they plan to help implement that in Brevard County's near future. As a representative of young and future voters, I was encouraged that while not everyone has the same level of knowledge on this subject, everyone I spoke with seemed to understand the importance of a transition to clean energy and a cleaner environment for Brevard County. I want to thank the Brevard chapter of ReThink Energy Florida and all the candidates that shared their time to speak with me and engage in this conversation that will definitely continue into their future terms of office. All candidates for each seat were invited, and no part of this video is an endorsement for any candidate. What are your plans, or what have you accomplished to help advance renewable energy options for Brevard County?
I think it's a great question. When we're looking at the future, whether it's in electric cars, whether it's going to be city vehicles that need to be electric. So I think it's going to be important that the city have a plan to either put charging stations for the residents who have electric cars. I know I've been looking at them myself just to try to stop the waste. There's some pretty good companies out there besides Tesla. I know they're the main one, but you have Nikola and a few other ones that are coming out with some pretty reasonable cars, I think, that will take off and ultimately hopefully change the how much our residents are using oil and gas. And also, I think the city has a responsibility to start thinking about when we're renewing the purchase of our city vehicles, whether they're police vehicles, whether they're code enforcement vehicles, or whatever they may be, to start looking at more options that are electric vehicles and create the charging stations for them as well. So those are things that I think that the city of Melbourne can do, and that way we can stop some of this waste that's happening and be forward thinking into the future. And I think it starts now. If we do this when it's too late, it's going to be a major cost to the city. I know that's what happened with police cars a while back. They had to buy new police cars, so it all happened at once, and it was a major expenditure. So if we do it and we think about it carefully now, I think we can have a good plan put together.
What are your plans, or what have you accomplished to ensure the transition to renewable energy in Brevard County is available to every resident at every income level?
As mayor and council, you have to make sure that you keep everybody in the city as a policy matter in mind, whether it's affordable housing or any other policy that the city decides to set. It's important that we think about it citywide. So when it comes to environmental policy, we have to really dig deep and think, okay, what makes the most sense for all of our residents? And I think that the biggest thing that the city can do is continue cleaning up our Indian River Lagoon, because that does affect everybody. We're putting the baffle boxes in, and we're doing a great job with that, but I think we can do it better and faster. We need to refocus some of our budget on that infrastructure, because there's so much nitrogen and phosphorus going into the Indian River Lagoon from some of these older areas of Melbourne, which my neighborhood included. I'm going out behind my house and cleaning up trash that's going in the stormwater drains pretty much twice a week. And I can't imagine all the different grass clippings and fertilizers and whatnot that are also going in there that I don't have the ability to clean up. So we need to refocus our budget there, because if we can make sure that we're not getting the algae blooms in the Lake Washington area with our drinking water, and we're cleaning up our Indian River Lagoon here in Melbourne, we can have a better ability to make that widespread for everybody. Now, that also includes making sure we're working with our other elected officials, whether it's the county, state, or even federal officials, to make sure that the counties, areas, and the cities around us are also doing the same thing. It's going to be very important to work with them. Otherwise, the city can be doing a great job, but it doesn't do a whole lot of good if no one else around you is. So I think that's going to be the important thing for the mayor.
The state legislature has implemented or attempted to implement a number of preemptions on environmental issues regulating fertilizer, plastic bags, and polystyrene. What is your opinion on home rule versus state control on environmental issues, specifically septic tank permitting?
I know there's a state bill that just got passed that Randy Fine, our state representative down in 53, which is just south of Melbourne and includes a little bit of Melbourne, to put more penalties on people who have septic tank leaks. And I think that's a good start. I think it's a strong bill, but also we need to make sure that we're moving people off the septic tanks, because a lot of times they're not going to realize when it does leak, and then it's too late. So if we're putting fines on them, then and it's still happening, it doesn't really solve the problem. And I think we need to make sure that we're solving the problem. So I think home rule is great because the city and the local governments know what's best for their areas. The state can make statewide policy, but it might be a different policy might be necessary for Miami or for Jacksonville or for Tampa than Melbourne. And I think that's why it's really important that we focus on the environmental regulations that we put in place at the city level. Overall, I think, I fall into more of less regulation is better for businesses and for families. But on the environmental side, I think people would and have in the past taken advantage of less regulation, and it's become harmful to our community. So making sure that when it comes to the plastic bags, or I know straws has been an issue that's come up. Encouraging our businesses and our residents to not either use straws or use paper straws. We come from an area where we're right on the beach. I grew up on the beach. Watching the sea turtles go into the water all the time, and you don't want to see them and their habitat impacted by this. So I think it really comes down to city regulation, how strong our officials are and knowing their own community. And growing up here, I think, I'm the best person to do that because, I've been there, I've seen it, and I've made sure to do that in my own personal life. The city of Melbourne, we have such great assets here when it comes to our waterways, when it comes to our beaches, and watching them either erode or not be as beautiful or clean as they were when I was a kid is tough to watch. And I just had a baby in March, my son Wyatt, and I want him to grow up in a Melbourne that I grew up in, where I don't have to worry about is there an algae bloom coming, is there a fish kill, what's that terrible smell going down the river. But we want to make sure that we're cleaning all the muck out of the river, and we're focusing on our infrastructure problems and solving them through a strong focus on our budget. So I am the candidate that would be willing to do that. I think that I'm very forward thinking when it comes to that, and I would hope that I could gain your vote and the people who have the environment in their minds vote for those reasons.
What are your plans, or what have you accomplished to help advance renewable energy options for Brevard County?
Renewable energy is very important, and I look at it on a broad scope when it comes from whether it's recycling, how we make our energy, how we produce energy. For example, FPL now going. I don't know if you've been out to the big solar farms now and out in Barefoot Bay. That's kind of a renewable energy. But to answer your question specifically, I see us moving more into renewable energy. We've added, for example, the city of Melbourne charging stations for vehicles, and again, solar. One of my businesses, we do offer solar products when it comes to ventilation and stuff. So there's definitely a time and place, and as we get better, as we get better products, I see those kind of renewable energy products being more successful and more actually work.
What are your plans, or what have you accomplished to ensure the transition to renewable energy in Brevard County is available to every resident at every income level?
In the city of Melbourne, specifically, we're not responsible for, you would say, energy. In other words, like Florida Power Light and such. We are the cities. Some cities do that, but our city of Melbourne, Brevard County, we don't do that. We don't do the energy. However, I would probably answer as like recycling, for example, water. We've added where there's rebates for rain barrels, and they're available to anyone. It doesn't matter your income or where you live. That, and I know there's incentives when you talk about solar products and such. So, and not to mention, like, make charging stations and such now, readily available, and if not free, inexpensive. So that's really in city government as much as you can do when you say renewable energy, because again, we don't have the responsibility for like power lines, and none of that is the city of Melbourne. We're basically more water and drainage, etc. But really, water is our big thing because we do manufacture and make water. So water is more ours than energy.
The state legislature has implemented or attempted to implement a number of preemptions on environmental issues regulating fertilizer, plastic bags, and polystyrene. What is your opinion on home rule versus state control on environmental issues, specifically septic tank permitting?
That's a very good question. And, it's funny, a lot of people are afraid to ask that because over the last couple of years, I remember when Representative Fine tried to bring in the inspections on septic systems. You had lobbyists from really both sides saying no. Now I am a licensed home inspector, and one of the things when you do a home inspection, you don't inspect the septic, and many professionals and scientists have concurred that is one of the biggest problems creating the lagoon issues we have. I know it's likely going to be expensive, but there's a point that if we are taxing ourselves at a 1/2-cent sales tax to clean up a lagoon, and we ignore the fact that there's septic systems out there causing these problems, then we're really kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. So we're going to have to do something statewide, I believe, that septic systems are going to have to be looked at, and we're going to have to get people. And I will say, we had a discussion at council last night with the state, with our we have actually 2 lobbyists, because we are getting more money, I think, than anybody. We've got more money than anybody. Can you see me? I'm sorry, I had to call in. But we're getting more money than anybody for septic to sewer conversion. So that's a big thing we're working on, the city of Melbourne, that you can actually apply and get and get help moving from the septic to sewer. So that's very important, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges the city of Melbourne is facing right now, and we're actually combating that pretty good with our two people we have up in Tallahassee. Really, I think the biggest challenge, and as you get into a role in an office, you learn a lot. I think one of the biggest challenges that people don't see that Melbourne has is the water and infrastructure. I mean, I'm very avid on clean water, but Melbourne has probably 350 miles of old piping, and that's throughout the city and goes everywhere. And we have to focus on getting all that changed. And the water being a 2-part system, it's getting not only getting clean water from like the St. John's and making the water, but what we do after the fact with the waste and how we dispose of it, instead of just dumping it over in biosolids on the field next to the water. So I've been a big advocate. Sometimes I feel like I've been the only one on the council that really, fought for the clean water, which I know is not true, but it's like I am definitely the leading voice, and hopefully, whether I'm elected or not, I'm just hoping that people take it seriously, because water is getting more precious and more scarce. And by the time people are complaining, a lot of times it's already too late.
What are your plans, or what have you accomplished to help advance renewable energy options for Brevard County?
The City of Melbourne Council previously has already taken steps to hopefully this renewable energy will be in place by 2035, I believe it is. We want to convert all municipal projects or properties to renewable energy, such as solar energy, wind energy, rain energy, and also replace our city vehicles with electric cars, vehicles that will work with neighboring communities, the county, and and the state also. That's where we're going. That's the trend that's coming. So the use of renewable energy in residential and commercial properties also is what we're looking at. So yeah, there are plans in place already for that to happen at least by 2035.
The state legislature has implemented or attempted to implement a number of preemptions on environmental issues regulating fertilizer, plastic bags, and polystyrene. What is your opinion on home rule versus state control on environmental issues, specifically septic tank permitting?
You know, this is my stance on it, when especially pertaining to septic tanks or sewer line hookups, because actually the Inter River Lagoon has undergone a lot of mistreatment, and we believe that a lot of that has come from the septic system. So when new development come into the Melbourne or Brevard County, we want to encourage the converting to the sewer line. As I said before, we spend millions of tax dollars every month to restore the lagoon, and so we must require advanced septic systems where sewer is not available, and connected sewer were available. So I think in the process of that, we're going to have a better lagoon, and I do believe that this is pushing forward to the future. I would like to encourage a move away from the traditional lawn idea and move to natural native landscaping. And by moving to natural or native landscaping, we eliminate the need for poisons and fertilizers to maintain the landscape. Those poisons and fertilizers are a big part of our lagoon's problem. The native plants feed and support wildlife and provide support for our birds without artificial, support. They drastically reduce the need for water. The elimination of environmental poisons supports both human health and the health of our native plants and animals. So that's what I like to leave. I know it's a long shot, but I believe in the future we're gonna gravitate towards it even more.